Okay, so it looks like we might be live on Facebook. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Hannah. I am a board member with the Friends of Haystack Rock here in Cannon Beach, Oregon. It's been a rainy couple days. We did have snow. For those of you who weren't here, I think it was on December 26th or so, the day after Christmas, that we had kind of a dusting of snow, which was really exciting. And then it's been pretty rainy since. We did have a beautiful day of sun a couple days ago, and Haystack was gorgeous. But I keep thinking about all of the puffins that are going to be out there this year and all the other cool critters that we see out on the beach a little later in the spring when that finally comes around. But the Friends of Haystack Rock is a nonprofit organization that is based in Cannon Beach, Oregon. And we do so many cool things that I'm excited about. We just put out a newsletter the other day, so make sure to be a part of that if you're not already. We share updates in there, and then we'll also put out a hard newsletter in a couple months, I believe. So if you'd like to see that, please make sure we have your address because that has more great content. And this year we're excited to tackle litter a little bit more, and we'll be hearing from a speaker today who has been doing a lot to tackle litter. But before we get started, make sure to follow our Facebook page for more about what we're doing this year in 2022. I can't believe I'm saying that. It seems like 2021 lasted forever and we're finally to 2022. But we are excited to welcome you to beach cleanups and puffin watches and lots of exciting things that are coming up throughout the year. And today we are actually one thing that I just remembered. So Facebook Live does have a closed caption option. So if you would like to hear our presentation with or see closed captions on the screen, there is an option to do that on the video. So if you would like that, please make sure to find that option down at the bottom. So our speaker today is Marc Ward, who's the co-founder and executive director of the environmental nonprofit Sea Turtles Forever. And I'm so excited to hear more about Sea Turtles Forever and the amazing work that they do. I was just telling Marc before that I'd love to get involved because it looks like everything that they do is really impactful, and I'm so excited to learn more, like I said. So if you do have any questions as Marc is talking, please make sure to put them in the chat on the Facebook Live, and I will ask Marc at the end of his presentation your questions. So you have to hang around until the end to listen to your answers. And we'll also post this. This will be live on Facebook, so you can continue to go back and watch it if you'd like, but it'll also live on our YouTube channel. So Friends of Haystack Rock YouTube, and you should be able to find that in the next couple days after this presentation. So without further ado, Marc, you have the Zoom.
Okay, I'm gonna fix my lighting situation here a little bit. Oh, that's better lighting there, huh? Yeah, that's much better. Thank you, Hannah. I had to do a little light change here, lighting change. So, what a pleasure to be here tonight and talk to whoever's out there about the work of Sea Turtles Forever. This is our 20th year. That's a big milestone for us. 20 years of work. And it all started with sea turtles in Costa Rica, where we run a research program monitoring and protection of marine turtles on Punta Pargos, a place in northwestern Costa Rica. Originally, I went down there and was taking a break from Portland State and stayed for a few months and discovered that all of the marine turtle nests were being poached or stolen, illegally harvested, however you want to, whatever you want to call it. All the eggs were gone from a very important nesting area because we had numerous species nesting in that site, which is not common. And we had leatherbacks, greens, olive ridleys, and hawksbills, all nesting in the same area, about a 5-mile stretch of different pocket coves, secluded beaches, very, very rural area. And so I knew enough about ecosystems to notice that something was really wrong with this place, very close to the town of Paradise. And this really was paradise. Costa Rica, northwest Costa Rica, this area, Punta Pargos, when I first ended up there, it really was paradise. Town very appropriately named. But I realized there was a problem. So I contacted Costa Rica's leading environmental attorney, and to see what can be done legally to stop the poaching. And she directed me to Randall Arouse, who is Costa Rica's top marine biologist. And I started communicating with Randall. So he asked me to do a survey to see how many nests and what kind of turtles that we were talking about. So my wife Rachel, who was actually my girlfriend at that time, and I did the survey, and we found 100% of the nests were being poached, and that there were some smaller turtles like olive ridleys, but there were also leatherbacks and Eastern Pacific greens, Chelonia Mydas Agassizii, which is a bit of an offshoot from the normal Pacific green. So we were losing 100% of the nests, every egg taken, and also turtles. So I tried to get Randall to set up a research project there and a monitoring and protection program, and he convinced me that I should do it and that I could set that project up and run it under his authority. So I actually didn't realize how much of a challenge that was going to be, but I really wanted to stop the poaching. I really have a connection to sea turtles. And so Rachel said she'd help, and we decided to do it. We started the project. I figured it'd take a couple of years to set up the good project and get things straightened out. Well, poaching of turtles is culturally embedded practice in Costa Rica. They've been doing it for many generations, harvesting the eggs. And, you know, before commercial fishing and other issues like marine plastic, it was somewhat sustainable, I believe. But with all of the effects going on, I don't believe it's sustainable anymore. So we started the project 20 years ago. And just a moment, please. So that's where we got started. My kids are being kind of loud with their music, so I had to have them turn it down. So turtles, protecting turtles. We focus on all aspects of marine turtle conservation, and protecting turtles means confronting a lot of different challenges. There's, you know, commercial fishing is one challenge. Poaching is our main challenge. Loss of habitat is another challenge, and then pollution. And so we were studying all aspects. And when we started our project, the amount of marine plastic that was on those beaches was astronomical. We removed thousands and thousands of pounds, literally tons of marine plastic debris that accumulated on those beaches. These are pristine tropical beaches, absolutely secluded, some of them, that were covered with a wall of marine debris at the back beach. So first step, we removed all that and started studying the landfall. And we spent 10 years at Largatillo Reef. It's one of the most important foraging reefs in western Costa Rica. It's the westernmost point in Costa Rica, and we get turtles coming there to forage from the Galapagos Islands. So a very important location, and we did a 10-year marine plastic study there, removed tens of thousands of pounds. Every year we would remove thousands of pounds. And so we started learning about plastic. And then what I realized was we've got a problem with plastics and turtles. I worked with Lance Ferris, a researcher in Australia, that was doing more necropsies of marine turtles than anybody on Earth. And he was, opening up the stranded turtles and checking for what might have possibly killed them. And every turtle was full of microplastics. And some macroplastics like bags, plastic bags were pretty bad, but mostly microplastic. Small pieces, 5 millimeters and less. And so we realized we had another major challenge on our hands, a major threat to our turtles. And we moved into researching microplastics. About that time, I was predicting that we were going to have a major problem when large groups of foraging turtles came in contact with high density concentrations of microplastic. And right after I made that prediction, we had 100 turtles stranded on the beach in Brazil, all dead and containing 2.5 kilos each on average of microplastic in each turtle. And my prediction pretty much came true on that one, where we had a large group of foraging turtles encounter a high density area of microplastics, and they forage on those microplastics, which kills them. So the thing about microplastics and trash, I don't consider microplastics trash. It's a whole different category of toxic waste, is what I would consider microplastics. Plastic bags, coffee cups, flip-flops, things like that, those are trash. Large pieces of stuff, that's what I would consider trash. But the microplastics are a whole different category of toxic waste. And just a moment. Okay, so microplastics. How do we get to microplastics? Because microplastics are one of what I would consider the main threats to marine turtle sustainability. And we started studying microplastics in depth. So I did a research project with Tokyo University, as we wanted to find out if the microplastics are just killing the turtles from impaction, or if there are toxic components to the microplastics. And the sharp edges will lacerate the intestinal tracts and the stomach lining. And the turtles will feel like they're full, but they're not getting any nutrient. And then there was the toxic question: how toxic are these plastics? So what we did was a toxicity study. I worked with Hideshiji Takada at Tokyo University, and they organized a large-scale collection. And we collected 141 sites in 41 countries. And then they analyzed those samples in the lab at Tokyo University. And what we found in the plastics was pretty shocking, that they have the ability to absorb toxic materials, such as PCBs, PBDEs, DDT, and PAHs, and 150 other different variations. These toxic persistent organic pollutants. And all of these chemicals are deadly. Some of the worst chemicals ever made, like PCB. And they're carcinogens, they're endocrine disruptors, they're neural disruptors. Just the worst chemicals ever on Earth are all in the ocean now. So in the ocean, they're highly dilute. But these microplastics, these small pieces, they have the ability to absorb those toxins and then pack them in at over 1 million times background levels, normal background levels. So what you get is very toxic material, and that's what the turtles are eating. So once we realized that, I realized we were really have a major threat here, not only to our turtles, but to our entire marine food web. Because as research has gone on, we've found these chemicals, zooplankton, which the zooplankton have been found with the dust, and the dust is very small. It's micron size, 50 to 100 micron size dust, plastic dust particles, and yet zooplankton forage on that material, and it's all toxic. It all contains these chemicals. So we have a major threat to our entire marine food web. And I came back to Oregon, and I realized, well, I went to the beach, and I took my family to the beach. Those noisy kids that I've been trying to correct out there that are having fun out in the other room. We took them to the beach, and what I noticed in Oregon for the first time is we had quite a landfall of microplastic, which I hadn't seen previously. It was really kind of a new dynamic for our Oregon beaches. And my son, who's 12 now, but he was 2, and he immediately tried to eat some. And I could see that we had to come up with some kind of solution to secure the beach so these kids would have a safe place to play. So it's not just about turtles. It starts with turtles, and we're still doing our marine turtle work. Our 20th year, this is a big year because it takes 20 to 25 years for turtles to reach maturity. And so this is our first year where our very first hatchlings that we secured, we secure the turtles as they're being laid, secure the eggs. We move them to a safe location. We create a translocation site where we dig our own nest, plant the eggs, monitor them until they hatch. And so from our first year of work, we have our first turtles coming back to nest this year. It's a big deal for us. But the plastics, so they're not only affecting the turtles, they're affecting all sea life now. Seabirds, I mean, NOAA's estimate, I think 6 years ago, NOAA estimated 1 million seabirds a year dying from microplastic ingestion. We've got it in our zooplankton, the base of the marine food web. They're finding it in whales, and they're finding it in dolphins, and they're finding it in killer whales, and they're finding it in fish that we eat. So I realized we have to do something about this, whatever we can do. And we're a small nonprofit. We operate on a shoestring budget. We get a lot of work done, and maybe you're the most efficient project on earth as far as what we get done for the amount of resources we have to work with. But I realized we have to do something about this. So I decided to find a way to secure the beaches here, because when it was a problem that was directly potentially going to affect my children. And you protect what you love, and I do love my children. So I realized we have to find a way to secure the beach from this material, because microplastics, they have the ability to absorb a million times background, but they also have the ability to leach when they warm up. So in the ocean, they're at a consistent temperature, and they just absorb like a sponge sucking up water, these chemicals. And they're at a fairly consistent temperature, so they don't leach the chemicals back out once they absorb them at sea. But when they make landfall on the beach, then they're heated up, and heat is the trigger for chemical leaching. So you have all this plastic, and it might be only one little piece absorbs all that toxin, but now you have a billion of those pieces landing on your beach. And so they're all packed with these PCBs, DDT, PBDE, and now they're in a mass. So they start warming up in the summer, there's going to be leaching. And now you're going to have those chemicals, which never had a real environmental pathway back to us. And environmental pathway is how any way a chemical can get to your body. So when they're in the ocean, they're highly dilute. It's not as much of a threat to us as when they're heavily concentrated and thrown on a beach that our kids are going to be playing on every day. And then the leaching factor. So now, where we were kind of secure because all these chemicals are in the ocean, now they have a direct environmental pathway to us through the beach. And of course, where we're looking at the potential of is in the fish. But the beach is what I was worried about. I can't fix everything. Nobody can. You have to stay a little bit focused, even though there's a myriad of issues. But I was focused on protecting the beach so it doesn't become highly toxic, where my kids and 50 million other kids in the United States want to go every summer and play. So I started working on a system to remove the microplastics from the beach and return the beach to a pristine state, so that we could maintain that indefinitely. Now, in Oregon, what we get is immense landfall of microplastics in the winter. Microplastics come in waves, and they don't trickle in all summer long and all year long. What we do is we get hit by giant landfalls all at once. So in the winter, when ocean conditions are right, and the California current is running, which is the Eastern Intercontinental Current, comes from Japan, and it circles the whole Pacific, and it goes right by the gyre, because in that central Pacific gyre, there are hundreds of millions of tons of this material, hundreds of millions of tons of this microplastic. And I actually worked with Captain Charles Moore, who discovered these central gyre out in the Pacific. And so large clouds of that break off the gyre, and they enter that current, and they turn in a 90-degree corner here about in southern Washington and come right down the coast of Oregon, and in that current. Then when ocean conditions are just right, we'll have massive clouds of this material in near offshore waters here. And then when ocean conditions are just right, they're just the right tides, might be just the right swell direction, wind direction, some geological formations that create upwellings and condense the material at the surface, and then it just dumps on the Oregon coast from one end to the other, incredible amounts. We pulled about 5,000 pounds off one beach that's about 200 meters long this summer. That was just one little beach, but it affects the whole Oregon coast. So I figured we've got to do something about this, and I thought it should be filtering. We should be able to filter the sand and collect this plastic. So I created a filtration system. Had nothing to work with as far as funding, had really no resources except my own personal resources to work with, and figured out a way to filter the sand so we could remove all the plastics and leave pristine sand. And this system was real simple, but I worked on it for several years, fine-tuning it, different prototypes, and finally came up with the most effective and efficient tool. And the bonus we found was that we were able to also generate a passive static charge because of friction on the screen, on the filter screen, and it would actually collect micron-sized particles of plastic dust. And this is the stuff that the zooplankton are eating, and therefore, the base of a marine food web, and therefore they're transferring that material all the way up through the food web. But for an example, one of the beaches that we filter is Crescent Beach, Oregon. It's in Ecola State Park. We did a 10-year study on material there and what kind of materials make landfall as far as microplastics, how much of each classification is making a landfall, and what are the toxic implications. And also what we found when we started looking very closely at the microscopic level is that we were collecting a lot of this micron-sized dust in our samples. So one sample, about 100 grams. A sample is 1 square meter. That's our sampling size. We'll sample 1 square meter of beach, and we'll do half a dozen of those samples on a given day on one beach. And then we take the samples, we run the sand through the filters off the beach. We take the sample back to the lab and dry it. We sort the plastics into different categories, like polymer pellets or nurdles would be one category. Styrofoam, down to the size of just single flakes, that would be another category. Large plastics, which would be 5 to 10 mil, and small plastics, which would be 5 to 0. And but what I would find in like a 1 square meter sample was that about 100 grams of what looks like sand would also bond because of that static charge to the filter, and that would come home in our sample. And you're generating a little bit of static charge in there, so it's bonding some of it to the plastic too. But in 100 grams at Crescent Beach, 20 grams would be that micron size plastics. So 20% of the sand we'd bring back in our sample would be actually plastic. That looks like sand because it's the size of sand. And to the naked eye, you can't tell the difference. So we realized the system worked really good. And we did a lot of research on amounts. The amount of plastics we found when we started that study 12 years ago or so was increasing yearly exponentially. So the first year we did the surveys, we were picking up 50 grams per square meter on the beach at Ecola State Park, Crescent Beach. And then the second year, we were picking up 100 grams of microplastic per square meter on the beach. So it was an exponential growth. Then the third year, we picked up 230 grams, so exponential growth again. Doubling of landfall per year. Now it's stabilizing, and the last several years of samples were right around 300 to 400 grams per square meter. And that's what it seems to kind of leveled off at, around 300 to 400 grams per square meter. So it increased. And you can see some of that data in the report from the Center for Biological Diversity. They used our data for a report to Oregon State, the environmental quality. And because they were trying to get the government to act more on microplastics in our water, which we're finding a lot of microplastics in everything now. Beers, that really can be a problem. So we saw an increase in landfall. I knew that we had to go into a more of a remediation mode. We've done a lot of research. We isolated so many different facts and data about the situation. And what I realized was what I really want to do is just maintain these beaches. If I only have so many resources, I only have so many people on our team. What we really need to do is try and restore these beaches to a pristine state. We've done a lot of research, and we still do the sampling. Not every year and not as extensively as we had, but we still do some sampling. But what we are starting to focus on, this is STF Blue Wave. We created a team that is solely focused on remediating the microplastic landfall from as many beaches as we can. And these are very experienced people on our core team. Some have been with us for years and years, working the beaches with this filter system. So now we'll start at Whale Park in Cannon Beach, because Whale Park is one of the highest density sites in all of Oregon. It's absolutely amazing what lands on that beach every year as far as microplastics. We've been filtering there for 10 years, every year, at least 10 years, every year. And last year was the worst year ever, where I mentioned how we removed 5,000 pounds from that little beach. But we'll do everything in Cannon Beach, from North Cannon Beach down to Haystack Rock is our primary goal. There are bird rookeries. The amount of people that visit that beach and children that visit those beaches every year is astronomical. We put our first efforts into securing that beach and remediating the microplastic landfall, so all the children aren't playing in it, all the seabirds aren't eating it, and we can try and maintain that beach in its pristine state. Then we also will go to Crescent Beach, which is arguably the highest landfall site that we've worked on over the last 10 years, as far as consistently incredible landfall, 300 grams per square meter year after year. We also go to other beaches when we have some resources and some manpower, and we'll do Manzanita, we'll do Fort Stevens, and we'll do Oswald West. We've done that. But first we get the high density per people beaches where the most children go, like Cannon Beach, North Cannon Beach, West Shirley Park, those areas where we can keep this material away from kids that want to play on the beach. After seeing my 2-year-old want to eat the plastic right when he saw it, that was a real wake-up call. So Blue Wave has been a really incredible thing, and like I said, I've had people working on that team for years, very committed people. We really need volunteers for that project, and we've been working 5 days. Last year we worked 5 days a week all summer. We were shut down for COVID the year before that, but the year before that we were working 7 days a week, and anybody can come volunteer for that project in Cannon Beach, or if we work in Manzanita, Fort Stevens, wherever we're working, people can come almost any day of the week and volunteer with us. And COVID has kind of put a real crimp in that, but I'm hoping it'll be better this year. We went from having 300 plus volunteers a year to having 30. COVID. One year we couldn't even run, the worst COVID year. So we're bouncing back now, though. Like I said, we ran 5 days a week last year. We plan on doing it this year too. And if you did want to volunteer, that would be fantastic. And you can get more information off the website at seatrollsforever.org website. And there's contact information there and request for information site. And we can really use some volunteer help. So, yeah, not litter, it's toxic waste. And we're not saving the ocean. We're trying to save the beach, because the ocean is a whole nother dynamic. There's hundreds of millions of tons circulating in the ocean right now, and there have been some attempts to remediate that, but they're not working on any kind of scale that would actually remediate the situation. So we can protect our beach, though, and I've helped people all over the world get that system going on our beaches, from Thailand to Portugal, and from British Columbia to the Galapagos Islands, and from Nova Scotia to the Bahamas, and Great Lakes, Gulf states. Even set a girl up in Norway a few weeks ago. So there are thousands of people out there. State of California is just, we have shipped hundreds of screens to California. They're filtering the whole length of that state now. And so there's thousands and thousands of people out there now that are running this filter system too. It's not just our Blue Wave team working here in Northern Oregon. Now we have thousands of people all over the world that are filtering microplastics every year out of their beaches. And that was my goal. So we removed 6,500 pounds of microplastic this summer, but there's 100 teams like that out there, like ours. There's 100 of them. Hannah?
Yeah, it looks like you might have dropped out for a second, but now we've got you back.
Okay, good, because I wanted to, I know we only have so much time, but there was one more really important aspect of this talk, and that is how we can do something every day, no matter where you're at, to help with this issue. And that, of course, is plastic consumption, because the amount of plastic that we're consuming globally is absolutely going to kill this planet. First, our marine food web, but the amount of microplastics that we consume, the amount of the microplastic that's being produced could be cut down drastically if we consume less plastic ourselves. By when you go to the shopping market, when you go to the supermarket, when you go to buy groceries, when you buy any kind of consumer goods, if you can cut your plastic consumption by 50%, and we all do that, we're making a huge dent in the amount of plastic that is in the environment. Because plastic, once it's made, never goes away. It breaks into smaller pieces, it never breaks down. So when you go to the store and you see peanut butter in a plastic container, peanut butter in a glass container, buy the glass container, and you're helping with the situation from wherever you're at. Buy canned vegetables, buy wax cardboard, juice containers, milk containers instead of plastic. Any time when you're shopping, you can avoid buying the plastic items or the plastic packaged items, this planet will be better off. And it's pretty much impossible to eliminate plastic from your life, or for consumers not to buy any plastic. Okay, that's mission impossible. But you can cut 50% relatively easy just by shopping smart. And that's the way that I ask people to do that for us, and it's not that hard. And I had one 10-year-old kid working with the project, one of the many schools that we work with. He came with them and he saw the microplastics, and we removed 500 pounds of microplastic that day in like 5 or 6 hours with his school group and some of our team and a few other volunteers. And so that left a big impression on this 10-year-old kid. He went back to his school in Portland and he convinced them to eliminate single-use plastics from the lunchroom. Huge impact this 10-year-old kid had. Now they're not using disposable forks, spoons, knives, plates. And got them to do the same thing. So it's a school network that he's part of, and they help us, but he ended up getting those 5 schools to eliminate single-use plastics from their cafeterias. 5. 10-year-old kid, huge impact from this kid. So he gets some kind, he got an award the next year for that. And but that's the kind of thing you can do anywhere on earth, anywhere you're at. You can help with this issue by just consuming less plastic. And I think that's about it, Hannah. How much time do we have left? I would like to answer any questions that you have.
Sure. So yeah, just about 10, 15 minutes left. I didn't see any questions pop up. So if anyone on Facebook or who's joined us in the Zoom have any questions for Marc, please make sure to drop it in the chat and I'll ask him. But Marc, I think that you bring up such a good point about, eliminating the plastic when you go to the grocery store. And I mean, I bring my fabric bags, but I never even think about making the choices of the products that I purchase. That's such a good thing for us all to keep in mind. So there is a question from Sabrina who said, how and where are the microplastics that have been removed stored so they aren't reintroduced into the oceans and the environment?
So that's a really good question. And ideally what I would like to do is incinerate everything that we collect. And I was working with a guy on a portable incinerator, which we haven't got to that yet. That's what I would like to have, an incinerator right there on the site. But it has to have the right scrubbers, and it has to heat at over 1800 degrees so that you can destroy the POPs, because the PCBs, PBDEs, DDT, and that, it has to be temperatures over 1800 degrees to destroy those chemicals. So we don't have an incinerator near us. There used to be one in Eastern Oregon, but now the nearest one I think is in Utah. We can't afford to ship all this material out to Utah. So what the state wants us to do with it is send it to a non-recyclable solid waste landfill in McMinnville, Oregon. And they end up getting it. And that contains it. It's not the ultimate solution, but it does do the best we can do right now.
Well, great. Thank you, Marc, for joining us. It's been so great to hear about the work you're doing. Hopefully, you've inspired some volunteers, or at least folks who are thinking more carefully about, the products that they consume in their lives. And if anyone wants to learn more about Sea Turtles Forever, I did post the link in the chat and on Facebook. So you can go ahead and click that link and find out more. And they're also on Facebook too. So make sure to like Sea Turtles Forever on Facebook. And I'm sure you will learn a ton more by following that page. So thank you, Marc. I really appreciate it. And anyone that wants to join us for our next library chat, make sure to check out our Facebook page as well. And we'll have the details on that.
Do you have any questions, Hannah?
I think you answered all my questions except, okay, so The thing about volunteering for me is that I really need to know, like, if I'm going to volunteer, what exactly am I doing? So if I get on the beach with you all, what are you going to be having me do?
You would help run the filtration screens.
Okay, so
And
is that like a heavy lifting thing or what?
No, it's actually really fun. And it's a low impact workout, running the filter screens. And this is a really good question because I didn't explain exactly what we do on the beach. And you take this, the filter screen is 7 feet by 3 feet or 2 meters by 1. And you set it down on the beach, right next to the microplastics rack line, because it's usually in a rack line going up and down the beach. And you set the filter down on that rack line, and you have two people to run the filtration screen. You take the aluminum shovels, and there's a very specialized shovel. They're like a snow shovel. They're aluminum, 16-inch blade, thin aluminum. They're light, and you skim the surface right in front of this filter screen. You load the plastics and the sand into the filter screen, and then one person gets on each end of the screen, and you do an up and down motion, and that filters all the sand out and creates a little bit of a static charge from the friction on the screen. It's low impact exercise, really good for you. We have people, and even myself, we come down there after all winter, and we're in so shape. And you know, my pros that they come down there, by the end of the summer, they are so ripped. It's amazing. And you know, people that have worked on that project, because it is low impact, and you can fill the screen as much as you want. You can filter 20 pounds at a time, or you can filter 70 pounds at a time, whatever you feel comfortable with. But I've had a lot of people tell me it's the best job they've ever had, people that have worked on our team, because you're on the beach all day. It's in a great environment. It's like, I describe it as a meditation, because it's not like digging ditches. We'll move 1-2 person team of our pros will do 70 pounds of screen, 21 screens an hour, 9,000 pounds a day of sand goes through that one filter. And wow. There's times when we'll run 10 filters, and we'll filter 80,000 pounds of sand, 40 tons in a day, 6-hour day. But it's nice low impact. It's really fun, and it's good for you, and it's very satisfying, because what you do is you come down to this beach it's covered with microplastic, and it's really horrifying. And then you move forward, and behind you leave this most pristine sand you ever saw. So it's pretty satisfying.
Well, now I know what I'm going to be doing. So I appreciate the great description. So I'm all ready. Well, thanks again, Mark, for joining us. And thank you, Sea Turtles Forever, for helping us keep our beaches clean.
Who's Robert Lundy? I see he's on the screen too.
Oh yeah, he's one of the.
We've got. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
No.
Yeah.
You're muted.
I'm gonna jump off Facebook Live.
I muted myself.